You don't belong in my world anymore. 7 words. That's all it took to shatter 3 years of marriage. Vivian stood frozen at her in-laws' anniversary party, 7 months pregnant. Her husband's voice cutting through the champagne laughter. He was talking to his mother about her, about replacing her with a younger, wealthier woman. But here's what Grant didn't know. Here's what none of them knew. The woman they called the placeholder, the wife they pitied for her limited circumstances, the obstacle they were so eager to discard. She was worth $4.3 billion. Grant offered her $50,000 to disappear quietly. $50,000. While she sat on a fortune that could buy his entire family 100 times over. He thought she was nothing. He thought she had nothing. He thought he was doing her a favor. He was so very wrong. This is the story of a woman who hid her wealth to find true love and discovered that the man she married only loved the idea of being better than her. This is the story of what happens when the person you underestimate turns out to be the most powerful person in the room. Stay until the end, because the moment Grant realizes the truth, you won't want to miss it. Lesson and value. What this story teaches us. Your worth is never determined by how others see you. The people who only value you when you appear small will never deserve you at your biggest. True love sees both your struggles and your strength. And sometimes, the greatest victory isn't revenge. It's simply becoming the person you were always meant to be. The meaning behind this story, this isn't just about a secret billionaire. It's about every woman who has ever been underestimated, every person who has dimmed their light to make someone else comfortable, every heart that trusted the wrong people and had to rebuild from the ashes. Vivian's journey reminds us that we don't need anyone's permission to reclaim our power. We just need the courage to stop hiding. You don't belong in my world anymore. The champagne glass nearly slipped from Vivian's fingers. She stood frozen behind a marble pillar in the Mercer family's country club ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the crowd. The string quartet played something soft and forgettable, and her husband's voice cut through it all like a blade. She pressed her free hand against her belly. 7 months pregnant. The baby kicked as if sensing her distress. Vivian had stepped away to find the restroom. Her swollen ankles ached from standing. Her lower back throbbed with that familiar third trimester pain. She had paused behind this pillar to catch her breath. That was when she heard her name. Grant stood with his mother near the French doors leading to the terrace. Cordelia Mercer wore emerald green tonight. Diamonds glittered at her throat. Between them stood a woman Vivian did not recognize. Young, 28 maybe, sleek dark hair cut to her shoulders. A dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She touched Grant's arm with easy familiarity. I should never have married so far beneath us, Grant continued. His voice carried that particular tone of casual cruelty. Vivian was a phase, a rebellion, but I've grown up now. Cordelia smiled. Finally, I've been saying this for 3 years, Grant. I know, Mother. You were right. The young woman laughed, a musical, practiced sound. Your mother is always right. That's what you told me. Sloane understands these things, Cordelia said. She comes from the right kind of family. Vivian's heart pounded so loudly she was certain they could hear it. Her fingers tightened around the champagne glass. The bubbles rose and burst against the surface. Tiny explosions of carbon dioxide that meant nothing. She had been married to Grant Mercer for 3 years. 3 years of dinner parties and charity galas. 3 years of biting her tongue around his mother. 3 years of telling herself that love was enough. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Grant glanced toward the ballroom. We should go back in. Douglas will want to make his toast soon. What about Vivian? Sloane asked. Won't she notice you've been gone? Vivian notices very little these days. Pregnancy has made her even more oblivious than usual. They laughed together, all three of them. At her expense, Vivian pressed her back against the cool marble pillar. She closed her eyes. The sounds of the party swirled around her. Clinking glasses, murmured conversations, the quartet shifting into a waltz. He means it. After 3 years, after everything, after this baby. He actually means it. She opened her eyes, took a breath, then another. Her phone was in her clutch. She pulled it out with trembling fingers, unlocked it, locked it, unlocked it, locked it. Her thumb hovered over Delphine's name, her best friend since college, the one person who would know what to say. She did not call. Instead, she walked back into the ballroom, her chin lifted, her spine straight, 7 months pregnant and steadier than she had any right to be. Cordelia spotted her first. The mask slipped on with practiced ease. Concerned mother-in-law, devoted grandmother-to-be. Vivian, dear, you look pale. Is the baby giving you trouble? Vivian met her eyes, saw nothing but calculated warmth. I'm fine, Cordelia. Just needed some air. Grant turned. Something flickered across his face. Not guilt, something closer to inconvenience, like she was a stain on his evening. You should sit down, he said. You've been on your feet too long. I'm fine. Really, Vivian, you need to think about the baby. The baby. Not our baby. The baby. Like it was an abstract concept rather than a child they had created together. We should talk, Vivian said quietly. Tonight, when we get home. Grant's jaw tightened. Can't this wait? It's my parents' anniversary. No, it can't wait. Cordelia and Sloane exchanged glances. Vivian caught it. The conspiracy of it. The way they communicated without words. Fine, Grant said. We'll talk at home. The rest of the party passed in a blur. Douglas made his toast about 40 years of marriage. Cordelia smiled and dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. The guests applauded. Champagne flowed. Vivian sat in a corner and counted the minutes. In the car on the way home, Grant drove in silence, his hands tight on the steering wheel, his profile sharp against the passing streetlights. Vivian waited. She had learned this about her husband, over 3 years. He could not stand silence. Eventually, he would fill it. I want a divorce, Vivian. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling outward, changing everything. I've met someone, he continued. Someone who actually fits my life. Sloane's family is connected, important. She understands my world. Vivian stared at the road ahead, the white lines blurring past. Your world? Yes. My world. The world you've never really belonged in. I'm sorry. I thought I could make this work, but you're not right for the life I'm building. She wanted to scream, to cry, to demand explanations. Instead, she heard herself ask, How long? How long what? How long have you been seeing her? A pause. Does it matter? Yes. About 8 months. 8 months. She had been pregnant for 7, which meant he had started seeing Sloane when Vivian was newly pregnant, when she was nauseous every morning and exhausted every night, when she needed him most. I see, she said. That's all? You see? What do you want me to say, Grant? That I am devastated? That I never suspected? That this is a complete surprise? He glanced at her, surprised by her calm. I expected more of a reaction. Would that make you feel better? If I fell apart? I just want this to be civilized. Civilized. He wanted to discard her like outdated furniture and call it civilized. They pulled into the driveway of their house, the house she had paid for, the house he did not know she owned. Grant cut the engine. The silence pressed in around them. "I'll stay at the club tonight," he said. "Give you time to process. We can discuss the details tomorrow." The details. Yes, the divorce, custody arrangements, financial settlement, that sort of thing. He said it so casually, as if 3 years of marriage and an unborn child were items on a checklist. "Fine," Vivian said. "We'll talk tomorrow." She got out of the car, walked to the front door, did not look back when she heard him drive away. Inside, the house was dark and quiet. She turned on the kitchen light, made herself a cup of tea she did not want, sat at the counter, and stared at the wall. What Grant didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the world they worshipped was a tiny island, and Vivian owned the ocean. The bedroom felt different that night, emptier. Even though Grant had barely been present for months, his absence now was official, documented, real. Vivian sat on the edge of the bed they had shared. The silk duvet was cool beneath her palms. Outside, a car alarm sounded briefly before cutting off. A dog barked somewhere down the street. She did not sleep. At 6 a.m, she heard a car in the driveway. Grant's footsteps on the porch, his key in the lock. He moved through the house with unsettling efficiency. She listened to him climb the stairs, open the closet, the sound of hangers sliding on the rod. He was packing. Vivian stayed where she was, sitting on the bed, still in the dress from last night, her makeup smeared, her feet bare. Grant appeared in the doorway with a leather overnight bag. "I thought you'd be asleep." "I wasn't tired." He looked at her. Something that might have been discomfort crossed his face, or maybe just annoyance at her inconvenient presence. "I'll stay at the club," he said, "until we sort this out. You can have the house for now." For now, as if even this temporary arrangement was a generous gift. "Sort this out," Vivian repeated. "That's what 3 years and a baby are to you. Details to sort out." Grant sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Vivian. I'll make sure you're taken care of. I'm not a monster." He actually believes that. That's the worst part. He actually believes he's being decent. "I loved you," she said quietly. "Did you know that? When I married you, I actually loved you. Vivian, please, let's not do this." "Do what? Have an honest conversation? Is that too much to ask?" "It's too early for this." He was already walking toward the door, already dismissing her, just like he had dismissed her for months, for years maybe, if she was honest with herself. "Grant," he paused, did not turn around. "I'm not crazy," Vivian said. "I saw the distance growing. I felt you pulling away. I told myself it was work, stress, the pregnancy. But I knew, somewhere inside I knew." Now he turned, looked at hers with something like surprise. "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to be wrong. Because I thought if I just loved you enough, you'd come back to me. Because I was willing to accept crumbs when I deserved the whole loaf." Grant shook his head. "This is exactly what I mean. The dramatics, the emotions. Sloane doesn't do this. Sloane isn't your wife of 3 years. Sloane isn't carrying your child." "No, she isn't." He said it like that was the point. Like the absence of those complications was what made Sloane better. He left without another word. The front door closed behind him. His car started in the driveway. She listened to it fade into the distance. The silence was deafening. Vivian walked through the house, room by room, memory by memory, every space now tainted with what she knew. The kitchen where he had proposed, down on one knee beside the breakfast nook. A ring he was so proud to afford. She had cried. He had laughed. They had made love on the kitchen floor while the coffee went cold. The living room where they had hosted dinner parties. She had learned to cook for his business associates, learned to smile and nod and be decorative, learned to make herself smaller so he could seem bigger. The nursery they had painted together, Soft yellow walls, a crib they had assembled while arguing over the instructions, a rocking chair she had found at an antique store. He had complained about the price. She had paid for it herself without telling him. So many things she had done without telling him. Her phone buzzed. A text from Delphine. Saw Grant leaving the club with that Fairchild woman last night. Please tell me you finally kicked him out. Vivian stared at the message. Her best friend had seen them at the club after Grant left their house. He had gone straight to Sloane. She called Dell instead of texting back. Please tell me I'm wrong, Dell said immediately. Please tell me what I saw wasn't real. You're not wrong. A pause. Oh, honey. He left me, Dell. Last night after the party. He told me I don't belong in his world. His world? What world? That mediocre corporate job and his mother's delusions of grandeur. Despite everything, Vivian almost laughed. Apparently that world is too good for me. Vivian, honey. Does he know? There it was. The question she had been avoiding. No. Viv? You have to tell him. You have to show him exactly how wrong he is. Not yet. I need to understand what I'm dealing with first. What's there to understand? He's a cheating scumbag who's abandoning his pregnant wife. There's more to it, Dell. I heard him talking to his mother, to Sloane, that this isn't just an affair. This was planned. Orchestrated. Another pause. What do you mean, orchestrated? I mean Cordelia has been pushing this for at least a year. Maybe longer. I mean, Grant is trading me in for a better model, because the better model comes with better connections. That's disgusting. It's strategic, in the worst possible way. What are you going to do? Vivian looked around the nursery. The tiny clothes folded on the dresser, the mobile hanging above the crib, elephants and giraffes, and pastel colors. I'm going to find out exactly what they're planning, she said. Every detail, and then I'm going to decide how to respond. You sound different, calmer than I expected. I think I'm in shock. Ask me again in a few days. After she hung up, Vivian sat on the nursery floor, surrounded by soft blankets and tiny socks. The baby kicked gently. A flutter against her rib cage. She picked up a onesie, white with yellow ducks. She had bought it on a whim, walking past a baby store downtown. Grant had been annoyed at the expense. She folded it, set it aside, picked up another, folded that too, everything already perfectly folded. She refolded it anyway, again and again, the repetitive motion soothing in its mindlessness. I was so careful, so patient. I waited for him to love me for myself, and all along, he was measuring me against a checklist I could never pass. The baby kicked harder, a reminder that she was not alone in this. I know, little one, she whispered. I know. Sleep finally came around dawn, heavy and dreamless. When Vivian woke, the afternoon light was slanting through the bedroom windows. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Grant and 1 from an unknown number. She ignored them all. Instead, she called Margot Bellingham, her father's lawyer, her secret keeper for nearly a decade. Vivian? Margot's voice was warm but professional. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. You've seen the news? What news? Never mind. I need to see you. Today, if possible. A pause. The sound of typing. I can move some things. Can you come to the office at 4? I'll be there. She showered, dressed in simple clothes, no makeup. Let her wet hair air dry as she ate a bowl of cereal, standing at the kitchen counter. The drive to Margot's office took 40 minutes. A nondescript building in a quiet part of the city. No flashy signs, no obvious wealth on display. That was how her father had preferred it. Edmund Ashford had built his fortune from nothing, the son of a factory worker and a school teacher. He had worked his way through college, started his first company in a garage, failed twice before he succeeded. But when he succeeded spectacularly. Tech patents, strategic investments, quiet philanthropy that never made the papers. By the time Vivian was born, he was already wealthy beyond most people's imagination. By the time she graduated high school, he was a billionaire. But Edmund never flaunted it. He drove a 10-year-old car, wore suits off the rack, donated anonymously to causes he believed in. He taught Vivian that money was a tool, not an identity. And when she was 22, home from college for the summer, he sat her down in his study. "You'll inherit everything, sweetheart." His voice was calm, matter of fact. "When I'm gone, all of this will be yours." "Dad, I don't want to talk about that." "I know, but we need to, because I want you to promise me something." She had looked at him then, really looked, and seen for the first time how tired he seemed, how much weight he carried. "What kind of promise?" "Don't let anyone love you for this." He gestured around the room, at everything it represented. "Find someone who loves you when they think you have nothing. Someone who would choose you without the money. Dad, I mean it, Vivian. Promise me." She had promised. 2 years later, Edmund died of a heart attack. Suddenly, without warning. One morning, he was eating breakfast and reading the newspaper. That afternoon, he was gone. Vivian was 24 years old. She had just finished graduate school, and she was suddenly worth $4.3 billion. She told no one, not her friends, not her extended family. Only Margot Bellingham knew the truth. Margot, who had been Edmund's lawyer for 30 years, who had drafted his will, who understood his values and his wishes. "He wanted you to have choices," Margot had said at their first meeting after the funeral. "Real choices, unencumbered by other people's expectations." So Vivian kept her secret. She lived, simply, rented a modest apartment, worked at a nonprofit that advocated for education funding. Let everyone assume she was exactly what she appeared to be. And then she met Grant Mercer, a friend's wedding, a warm June afternoon. She was wearing a sundress she had found at a thrift store. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No jewelry, except her father's watch. Grant was charming, handsome, confident in the way of men who had never been told no. He assumed she was a schoolteacher between jobs. She let him assume. Their courtship was swift. He took her to dinner at nice restaurants, made a show of paying every bill, introduced her to his family as a sweet girl from simple circumstances. Cordelia had looked down her nose at Vivian from the very first meeting. Douglas had barely looked at her at all. But Grant seemed proud to have found someone unspoiled by wealth. The irony could have choked her. I wanted to be loved for myself, not my father's money. Was that so wrong? She had believed in those early days that Grant was different, that his affection was genuine, that beneath the polished exterior was a man who valued her for who she was. Now she knew the truth. He had valued her for who she wasn't, for the smallness he perceived in her, for the way she made him feel bigger, better, more important by comparison. Margot's office was on the 15th floor. Wood paneling, leather chairs, a view of the city skyline, understated elegance that whispered of old money rather than shouting about new. "Tell me everything," Margot said once Vivian was seated. So she did. The anniversary party, the overheard conversation, Grant's demand for divorce, everything she had heard and suspected and feared. Margot listened without interrupting. Her face gave nothing away. But Vivian had known this woman for years. She could see the anger simmering beneath the professional calm. "I need you to pull the prenuptial agreement," Vivian said when she finished. Margot shook her head. "There is no prenup, Vivian. Grant refused to sign one, remember? He said it was unromantic given your circumstances." Vivian remembered. Grant had been so noble about it, so magnanimous. Why would they need a prenup when she had nothing to protect? He thought I had nothing worth protecting, Vivian said slowly. Precisely. Which means, in a divorce, you owe him nothing. All of your assets have been held separately. The Ashford Trust, the investment portfolio, the properties. Grant has no legal claim to any of it. He doesn't know any of it exists. Exactly. He'll receive whatever he brought into the marriage, which, based on my records, is approximately $47,000 in savings and a modest retirement account. Vivian laughed. The sound surprised her. Harsh and unfamiliar. He offered me $50,000 in the settlement, she said. He thought he was being generous? 50,000, Margot's voice was flat. For 3 years of marriage and the child you're carrying. He thinks that's more than I deserve. Then he's about to receive an education. Vivian shook her head. Not yet. I don't want him to know. Not until I understand the full scope of what I'm dealing with. What do you mean? I mean, this isn't just an affair, Margot. This was planned. Cordelia, Grant, this Sloane woman, they've been orchestrating something. I need to know what. Margot studied her. Your father would be proud of you. My father would be devastated that I ended up with a man like Grant. No, he would be proud of how you're handling it, with strategy instead of emotion, with your eyes open. That night, Vivian sat in the bathtub, still fully clothed, the water running cold around her. She stared at the ceiling and let her mind go blank. 3 years of pretending to be small, of watching them pity me, of biting my tongue when Cordelia asked if I could really afford organic produce. The baby moved, a gentle ripple across her abdomen. I won't teach you to be small, little one. Never. Sleep would not come that night either. Vivian sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. The house was silent around her. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. Outside, the neighborhood slept. Her father had taught her that information was power. Before you made any decision, you gathered every fact you could find. Before you revealed your hand, you knew every card on the table. Grant's email was still linked to their shared computer. He had set it up years ago so she could help manage their social calendar. She had never abused that access, never read his private messages. Privacy had mattered to her. She almost laughed at the thought now. The emails were worse than an affair, much worse. She found the thread from Cordelia first, dated 8 months ago, just after Vivian discovered she was pregnant. The Fairchild connection could change everything for our family. Cordelia's words were precise and calculating. Douglas's pension situation is getting worse. The investigation is expanding. But if you're connected to Fairchild money, none of that matters. Sloane is interested. All you have to do is remove the obstacle. Grant's response came 2 hours later. I know. I'm working on it. Vivian's pregnant now. I have to time this carefully. The obstacle. I'm the obstacle. The baby is a timing issue. She read on. Message after message, a paper trail of betrayal stretching back over a year. Grant had met Sloane at a charity gala. Cordelia had engineered the introduction. The Fairchild family owned a private equity firm. Old money married to new influence, exactly what the Mercers needed. And Vivian had been there that night, at that gala, standing by Grant's side in a borrowed dress, making small talk with donors, playing the role of devoted wife, while her husband was being introduced to her replacement. She found Douglas's financial records next. The pension fund investigation was worse than she had imagined. Federal prosecutors were involved. Assets could be frozen. Criminal charges were possible. The Mercer family was drowning, and they had been drowning for years, long before Vivian entered the picture. No wonder Cordelia had always looked at her with barely concealed contempt. Vivian had been a waste of Grant's marriageable years, a detour on the road to financial salvation. Then she found the business proposal, a draft document labeled Wallace Partners Initiative. Grant planned to start his own firm, using contacts he had developed at Wallace Capital, with Fairchild Family Funding as the foundation. She read through the strategy, the projected returns, the target clients, many of those clients she recognized, people she had met at dinner parties, connections she had helped cultivate, relationships she had nurtured because Grant asked her to. They used me, every single one of them. Even my charm was just another asset to exploit. Her phone lit up on the table. 3:30 in the morning. A text from an unknown number. "This is Sloan. We need to talk." "It's important." Vivian stared at the message. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should ignore it. Block the number. Pretend it never arrived. Instead, she typed, "Why?" The response came immediately. "Because I don't think either of us knows the whole story." Vivian turned back to her laptop, saved screenshots of every email, every financial document, every piece of evidence she might need later. The sun was rising by the time she finished, pink and gold light streaming through the kitchen windows, the neighborhood waking up around her, car engines starting, dogs barking. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary morning. Her world had changed overnight. But the world outside continued as if nothing had happened. I am not the villain in this story. I am not the one who lied. I am not the one who schemed. I married for love. They married for leverage. She closed the laptop, stood up from the table, made herself eat breakfast even though food held no appeal. The baby needed nutrition. The baby needed a mother who was strong and clear-headed and ready for battle. And battle was coming. She could feel it. Grant returned the next morning. He brought Douglas's lawyer with him, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and an expensive suit, a show of force meant to intimidate. Vivian had prepared coffee, set out cups and cream and sugar on the kitchen counter. She wore a simple sweater and leggings. No makeup. Her hair pulled back in a ponytail. The picture of a vulnerable, pregnant woman with no resources and no support. "Let's keep this civilized, Vivian." Grant settled into a chair at the kitchen table. The lawyer sat beside him, papers already spread out between them. "I'll give you the house until the baby comes. After that, we can discuss a reasonable settlement." "A reasonable settlement. Yes, I was thinking $50,000. $50,000. For 3 years of my life and the child I'm carrying." "50,000, she repeated, her voice flat. "It's generous, given your circumstances." Grant had the audacity to sound magnanimous. "You can find a nice apartment. Start over." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Mercer, your limited financial position is well documented. Mr. Mercer is being more than fair." "My limited financial position. Yes, we understand this is difficult, but the facts are clear." Vivian picked up her coffee cup, set it down, picked it up again. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She had expected trembling, fear. Instead, there was only cold clarity. "I have a counteroffer," she said. Grant frowned. "Vivian, you're not really in a position to negotiate." She reached beneath the table, pulled out a folder she had prepared the night before, slid it across to them. "What's this?" The lawyer opened it, started reading. Grant leaned over to look. His face went white, then red, a flush spreading from his collar to his hairline. "Where did you get this?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "Does it matter?" "This is private correspondence. You had no right." "I had every right. We share the computer, Grant. You gave me access years ago." The lawyer was reading faster now, his eyes widening behind those wire-rimmed glasses, the pension fund documents, The federal investigation, the emails between Grant and Cordelia, the business proposal built on clients Vivian had helped cultivate. "This is inadmissible," the lawyer said. "Obtained without consent. No court would accept it." "I'm not planning to use it in court." Grant looked up sharply. "Then what?" "I'm planning to use it everywhere else." Vivian kept her voice calm, measured, the way her father had taught her. "Never let them see your anger until you're ready to deploy it. Your clients, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the country club, Cordelia's bridge group, every person who might be interested in knowing who you really are." "You wouldn't!" Grant was on his feet now, the chair scraping against the floor. "You don't have the resources to do that." "Don't I?" He stared at her, something shifting behind his eyes, calculation replacing outrage. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want nothing from you, Grant. Not a penny. Not this house, not your name. I want a clean divorce with full custody. And I want it finalized before this baby is born." "Full custody?" "Yes." "You can't just demand that." "I can, and I am." She stood up from the table, 7 months pregnant and taller than she had ever felt. "You have 48 hours to agree. After that, I start making phone calls." The lawyer gathered the papers with shaking hands. "Mr. Mercer, we should discuss this privately." "Yes," Vivian agreed. "You should. And while you're discussing, remember something. I'm not the person you think I am. I never was." She walked them to the door, held it open, watched them stumble down the front steps, like men who had just seen something impossible. Grant paused at his car, turned back. "Who are you, Vivian?" "Really?" She smiled. "I'm the woman you underestimated. That's all you need to know." She didn't tell him the truth that day. She wanted to. The words burned in her throat. "I could buy your entire family 10 times over. I own more than you will ever dream of. You threw away the best thing that ever happened to you." But she waited. Because the best revenge isn't telling someone what you'll do. It's showing them. After they left, Vivian sat down on the living room floor, her back against the couch, her hands on her belly. The anger had drained away, leaving something hollow in its place. Not grief exactly. Something more like exhaustion. The bone-deep tiredness of someone who had been fighting for too long. The baby kicked, hard enough to make her gasp. "I know," she whispered. "I know, Mama's got this. I promise." The days that followed blurred together. Meetings with lawyers, phone calls with Margot, documents to review and sign and file. Theodore Banks came highly recommended by Delphine, a divorce attorney with a reputation for protecting women in Vivian's situation. Though, of course, Vivian's situation was unlike anything he had encountered before. "You've been living a double life for 3 years, Theo said during their first meeting. His office was cluttered with case files and family photos. A man who worked too hard and loved too much. I wanted to be loved for myself. And were you?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. "No, I was loved for being manageable, controllable, less than. I was loved for being useful," she said finally. "That's not the same thing. No, it's not." Theo reviewed the documentation, the prenuptial situation, the separate assets, Grant's complete ignorance of Vivian's financial standing. "He has no claim to anything," Theo confirmed. "The trust is bulletproof. Your father's lawyers knew what they were doing." "My father's lawyers have been protecting Ashford interests for 3 generations. They don't make mistakes." "Then this should be straightforward, assuming Grant cooperates." "He'll cooperate. He doesn't have a choice." Grant signed the papers 47 hours after their confrontation. Full custody to Vivian. No alimony in either direction. A clean break. Cordelia arrived at the house the same afternoon, unannounced, uninvited. her car screeching into the driveway like she owned the place. Vivian was folding laundry. Baby clothes mostly. Tiny onesies and soft blankets. She did not stop when Cordelia stormed through the front door. "I always knew you were wrong for Grant," Cordelia's voice shook with barely contained rage. "But I never thought you'd stoop to blackmail. I'm not blackmailing anyone. I'm protecting myself." "From what? We were going to take care of you." Vivian continued folding. A yellow sleeper with tiny elephants. A white bib with green stripes. The ordinary task grounding her in the moment. "Like you took care of Douglas's pension clients?" she asked calmly. "Like you took care of positioning Grant to marry Sloane before our child was even born?" Cordelia's mask slipped, the veneer of southern gentility cracking to reveal the venom beneath. "You think you're so clever, but you have nothing. You are nothing. When this is over, you'll be begging us for scraps." "I don't think so. Your little threats mean nothing. Douglas's lawyers will have that evidence thrown out. And then where will you be? Alone? Pregnant? Poor? Exactly where you belong." Vivian set down the onesie she was folding, looked directly at her mother-in-law for the first time. "Cordelia, I need you to listen very carefully, because I'm only going to say this once." Something in her tone made Cordelia pause. "I know about the federal investigation. I know about Grant's plans with the Fairchild family. I know about every email, every document, every scheme you've been running for the past 2 years. You don't know anything. I know Douglas is facing potential criminal charges. I know the Fairchild deal fell through the moment they found out. I know your country club membership is in jeopardy because you're 3 months behind on dues." Cordelia went pale. "How could you possibly—" "That's not your concern. Your concern is this. Leave me alone. Leave my child alone. Sign the papers your son agreed to sign, and pray that I'm as forgiving as you've always assumed I was." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" A long silence stretched between them. The clock ticking on the wall, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the ordinary sounds of a house that no longer felt like a prison. "Grant was right about one thing," Cordelia said finally. Her voice had lost its edge, replaced by something colder. "You're not the woman we thought you were." "No, I'm not. Now please leave my house." Cordelia left, the door slamming behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. Vivian stood very still, waiting for the adrenaline to fade, waiting for her heart to stop racing. The baby kicked gently, as if offering comfort. That evening, she drove to the cemetery where her father was buried, sat on the grass beside his headstone, the autumn leaves drifting down around her. "I tried, Daddy." Her voice was quiet, meant only for him. "I really tried to find someone who loved me for me." The wind moved through the trees, rustling, whispering, but I found something else instead. I found out what I'm worth, not in money, in character, and they have none. She stayed until the sun set, until the stars began to appear, until she felt ready to go home and start again. Sloane Fairchild appeared on Vivian's doorstep 3 days later. She looked different without the smugness. Younger, smaller, her designer clothes hanging loose like she had lost weight. "Can I come in?" Vivian should have said no. Every instinct told her to close the door, to protect herself, to keep the enemy at a distance. Instead, she stepped aside. "Coffee's hot." In the kitchen, Sloane's perfectly manicured hands trembled around the cup. Her eyes were red-rimmed, the careful makeup doing little to hide the dark circles beneath. "Grant hit me last night." The words landed like stones in still water. "He's never done that before." Sloane's voice was barely above a whisper. "Not once, but when I asked about the emails, about what you showed him, he just snapped. Vivian sat down across from her, the kitchen table between them, two women on opposite sides of the same terrible story. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you're the only person who might believe me. Sloane looked up, her eyes wet. And because I'm starting to realize I was never the winner in this situation. I was just the next useful piece on their board. You knew he was married. Yes. You knew his wife was pregnant. Yes. And you pursued him anyway. Sloane set down her coffee cup, her hands no longer trembling, something shifting in her expression. Not defiance, something closer to resignation. I was told you were the obstacle, that the marriage was already over, that Grant was just waiting for the right time. She shook her head. I believed it because I wanted to believe it, because Cordelia said all the right things, because the plan made sense. The plan? Yes, the merger of our families, Grant's new firm, my father's capital. Everyone benefiting. Sloane laughed bitterly. Except you, of course. You were supposed to fade quietly into the background, take your settlement and disappear. But I didn't. No, you didn't. And now everyone is scrambling. Sloane leaned forward. Vivian, the Mercer family is in serious trouble. Worse than they're admitting. Douglas's pension fund is under federal investigation. Their assets could be frozen any day. They needed my family's money to survive. And now my father has pulled out. The moment he heard about the investigation, he was done. The Fairchilds don't associate with scandal. Vivian processed this, the pieces clicking into place, so Grant is left with nothing. Less than nothing. No deal, no firm, no wealthy wife waiting in the wings, Sloane's voice cracked. And apparently, no ability to handle disappointment without using his fists. They sat in silence for a long moment, the afternoon light shifting through the windows, the house quiet around them. I should hate her. She tried to take my husband. She was part of the conspiracy that almost destroyed me. But all I feel is recognition. They called you the placeholder, Sloane said quietly. Cordelia told Grant you were good practice for the real thing. The words should have hurt. Instead, they just felt true. Good practice, Vivian repeated. I'm so sorry. I thought I was special. I thought I was chosen. But I was just another piece on their board, one with a bigger price tag. Vivian studied the woman across from her, the careful armor stripped away, the vulnerability underneath. What do you want, Sloane? Why are you really here? I want to warn you. Grant is dangerous when he's cornered, and right now he's very cornered. Whatever you're planning to do next, please be careful. I appreciate the warning. There's something else. Sloane reached into her purse, pulled out a flash drive, set it on the table between them. Cordelia's computer. She asked me to send some documents to my father last month. I made copies. Why? Insurance. I learned that from watching the Mercers. Always have leverage. Sloane pushed the drive toward Vivian. There are things on there even you don't know. About Grant's first marriage, about why Douglas really left his last firm, about how deep this goes. Grant's first marriage, annulled after 6 months, sealed records. The woman moved to Europe and never came back. Sloane stood up, gathered her purse. I don't know what happened, but I know it was bad enough to bury. She walked toward the door, paused with her hand on the frame. For what it's worth, I never meant to hurt you. I know that doesn't change anything, but I thought you should know. After she left, Vivian sat alone at the kitchen table, the flash drive untouched, the coffee going cold. The hardest part isn't the betrayal. It's realizing I trusted people who were never capable of deserving that trust. She picked up the flash drive, turned it over in her palm. Such a small thing to contain so many secrets. Then she put it in her pocket and went to make dinner. The baby needed nutrition, and Vivian needed time to think. 3 weeks passed. Autumn deepened into early winter. The leaves fell from the trees. The air turned sharp and cold. Vivian moved into her father's old estate, the one the Mercers never knew existed, a stone house on 50 acres of woodland. Quiet, private, safe. Delphine came to help unpack. Boxes everywhere, furniture still wrapped in plastic. The nursery empty and waiting. You're being suspiciously calm about all this. Dell stood in the doorway of what would become Eleanor's room, the walls painted soft yellow, the afternoon light streaming through tall windows. I'm done being small. Vivian set a box of books on the floor. I'm done pretending I don't have power because it might make people uncomfortable. Finally. What do you mean, finally? Vivian, I have been waiting years for you to stop hiding. Years. Dell walked over to help unpack. Your father was one of the most generous, brilliant men I ever knew, and you've been pretending to be ordinary because some jackass might not love you otherwise. It wasn't that simple? Yes, it was. You were scared. And Grant took advantage of that fear. But you're not scared anymore, are you? Vivian considered the question. The answer surprised her. No, I'm not. I'm angry. I'm exhausted. I'm 7.5 months pregnant with a man's child who doesn't deserve to be called a father. She paused. But I'm not scared. Good, because you have things to do. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Grant, terrified of exposure, signed everything Vivian's lawyers put in front of him. Full custody, no visitation rights until Vivian chose to grant them. A complete severing of financial ties. Margot called with updates. The Mercer family situation was deteriorating daily. Douglas had been formally charged with securities fraud. Their assets were frozen, pending investigation. The country club membership had been revoked. They're imploding, Margot said, without any help from you. I know. How do you feel about that? Vivian looked out the window of her new home. The bare trees, the gray sky, the first flurries of snow beginning to fall. I feel like justice doesn't always require revenge. Sometimes it just requires patience. She visited Preston Wallace the following week. Grant's former boss, the CEO of Wallace Capital, a man her father had quietly invested in decades ago. His office was on the top floor of a glass tower downtown. Modern art on the walls. A view that stretched to the horizon. Mrs. Mercer? Preston rose to greet her. His accent was old Southern money, his handshake firm but respectful. Or should I say, Ms. Ashford, you've done your research. I always do research. He gestured to a chair. Please. She sat, hands folded in her lap, the baby restless inside her. I came to discuss a business matter, she said. I assumed. What can I do for you? The venture Grant was planning, the one using contacts developed at Wallace Capital. I wanted you to be aware of it. Preston nodded slowly. I've already heard, and I've already taken steps to protect my firm's interests. I thought you might have. May I ask why you're telling me this? Grant is your husband. Was your husband. Because my father always said integrity matters more than advantage. Vivian met his eyes. And because I'm starting a foundation to support women entrepreneurs, I'd like Wallace Capital to consider being our first corporate partner. A long silence, Preston studying her with renewed interest. You're not at all what Grant described, he said finally. No, I imagine I'm not. He called you simple, unsophisticated, a sweet girl from humble circumstances. And now? Now I'm wondering how I ever took his judgment seriously. Preston leaned back in his chair. Tell me about this foundation. That night, Vivian sat on the porch of her father's house, wrapped in a blanket, watching the snow fall. She pulled out the journal she had started for her daughter, the one she would give her someday. when Eleanor was old enough to understand. Your grandfather taught me that money is a tool, not a measure of worth. Your father's family taught me the opposite. They measured everyone by their bank account, and still got the measurement wrong. I will teach you something different. I will teach you that the richest person in any room is the one who knows exactly who they are, who loves without condition, who helps without expectation. You will never have to pretend to be less than you are, and you will never mistake wealth for value. I promise you this, little one. I promise. The news broke 3 weeks before Vivian's due date. A federal whistleblower. Documents leaked to major newspapers. The full scope of Douglas Mercer's fraud exposed for the world to see. Vivian watched the coverage from her living room, the flames she had not needed to light consuming everything Grant's family had built. Mercer Financial founder charged with securities fraud. Pension fund scandal widens. Federal prosecutors seek maximum penalties. The phone rang. Margot. Have you seen the news? I'm watching it now. I want you to know that none of this came from us. The whistleblower was an internal auditor. He'd been gathering evidence for years. I know. Vivian felt strangely calm. Douglas built his own trap. He just needed time to fall into it. Grant filed for bankruptcy this morning. I heard. The Fairchild family is publicly distancing themselves. Sloane's father gave an interview calling the Mercers a cautionary tale. How is Sloane? A pause. Why do you care? Because she warned me, and because she was a victim too, just a different kind. She's working, actually. Some non-profit downtown. Started there last month. Vivian smiled. Good for her. The call ended. The news continued. The familiar faces of Grant and Douglas appearing on screen, looking haggard, desperate, so different from the polished men who had once looked down on her. She felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet awareness that the people who had hurt her were now hurting themselves, and she was no longer part of their story. Cordelia called that afternoon. Her voice was different, stripped of its usual venom, something closer to desperation. You have to help us. You have to call off whatever you've done. I haven't done anything, Cordelia. Don't lie to me. Someone tipped off the investigators. Someone leaked to the press. It wasn't me. Your husband built his own trap. I just stepped out of the way. A long silence, the sound of Cordelia, breathing, struggling to accept what she was hearing. Please, Vivian, whatever you want, money, an apology, anything. I don't want anything from you. I never did. Then why? Why are you doing this? I'm not doing anything. That's what you can't understand. You're so used to manipulation that you can't recognize its absence. Your family destroyed itself. I just survived. She hung up, turned off her phone, went to the nursery to fold baby clothes. Grant appeared at the estate 2 days later. Thinner than she had ever seen him. Wild-eyed, the polished executive completely gone. Vivian, please. He stood at the foot of her driveway. The snow falling around him. I made a mistake. I was manipulated by my family. We can start over. I still love you. She was in the garden, planting bulbs that would bloom in spring, her gloved hands covered in dirt, her breath fogging in the cold air. You don't love me, Grant. You never did. That's not true. It is true. She didn't look up from her work. You loved what I represented, someone you thought you were better than. It made you feel powerful to have a wife who seemed beneath you. I never thought that. You told your mother I was good practice. You called me the placeholder. You said I didn't belong in your world. He flinched, as if she had struck him. I was wrong. I know that now. Please, Vivian, whatever you want, I'll do anything. She stood up, brushed the dirt from her gloves, looked at him finally. You're not here because you love me. You're here because you've realized I might be useful after all. Same pattern, different desperation. That's not fair, isn't it? She walked toward the gate that separated them. I want you to leave now. And Grant, everyone knows who you really are. Not because I told them, because you showed them. She opened the gate, waited. He stared at her for a long moment, something shifting behind his eyes. Not remorse, not love. Just the slow, dawning realization that he had lost something he could never get back. You're different, he said. I don't even recognize you anymore. No, you don't, because you never really saw me in the first place. He left. His car disappearing down the long driveway, the snow erasing his tire tracks almost immediately. Vivian closed the gate, locked it, walked back to her roses without looking behind her. The baby kicked hard, a reminder that she wasn't alone, that she had never been alone, even when she felt most abandoned. Soon, little one, she whispered. Very soon. The baby came 2 weeks later, a cold December morning, the kind of day that felt like the world was holding its breath. Delphine drove her to the hospital, the contractions coming faster with each passing mile, the snow falling soft and thick around them. You're doing great. Dell kept her voice calm, her hands steady on the wheel. Just breathe, we're almost there. I know. Vivian closed her eyes, focused on the pain, let it wash through her like waves. The delivery room was bright and cold, doctors and nurses moving with practiced efficiency. Margot arrived somewhere in the blur of it all, holding Vivian's other hand. You're doing beautifully, someone said. Maybe Dell, maybe a nurse, maybe both. And then, after what felt like both, forever, and no time at all, a cry. Small and fierce and perfect, they placed the baby in her arms, a daughter, red-faced and wrinkled and absolutely miraculous. Hello, Eleanor, Vivian whispered. Named for your grandmother, she was braver than anyone I ever knew. The baby opened her eyes, dark blue, unfocused, already curious about the world. In that moment, Vivian understood something that had nothing to do with money or revenge or justice. I was so afraid of being loved for my money that I forgot to love myself for anything at all. But you will grow up knowing exactly who you are. Rich or poor, loved or alone, you will know your worth comes from within. The weeks that followed were a blur of feedings and diaper changes, sleepless nights, and quiet dawns, the slow rhythm of new motherhood. Dell came to help. Margot visited with legal documents and flowers. Even Sloane stopped by once, bringing a gift basket and an awkward apology. I wanted you to know, Sloane said. I got a job at a women's shelter downtown. They're doing good work, helping women rebuild their lives. Vivian looked at the woman who had once been her rival, saw something different there now, someone trying to make amends. That's wonderful, Sloane. Really. I was thinking, your foundation, the one supporting women entrepreneurs, if you ever need volunteers, or connections, or just someone who understands what it's like to be used as a chess piece. I'll keep that in mind. 3 months later, the Ashford Foundation launched officially. A gala at the estate. Investors and entrepreneurs and journalists filling the grand ballroom. Vivian stood at the podium, Eleanor sleeping peacefully in a nursery upstairs, monitored by a nanny who came highly recommended. My father believed that wealth is a responsibility, not a privilege. Her voice carried through the room, steady, clear. I spent years hiding from that responsibility because I was afraid of being seen as a dollar sign instead of a person. She paused, let the words settle. But I've learned something important. The people who truly matter see both, and love you anyway. Applause, warm and genuine. After the speech, Preston Wallace approached, his expression thoughtful. "I did some research," he said. "The Ashford Foundation has quietly been Wallace Capital's largest silent investor for 15 years. Vivian smiled. "My father believed in your company. And you?" "I believe in continuing what he started." They shook hands, a partnership formalized, a legacy honored. Later that night, after the guests had left and the caterers had cleaned up, Vivian sat in the living room with Eleanor in her arms, Dell across from her with a glass of wine. "Grant filed for bankruptcy today," Dell said. "Final judgment." "I know. You don't seem pleased." I'm not. I'm not anything about him anymore. That's the point." She looked down at Eleanor, the baby's face peaceful in sleep. "I spent so long worrying about who I was in someone else's world. Now I'm building my own, and there's room in it for everyone who deserves to be here. That's very enlightened of you." "I'm trying." Dell raised her glass. "To new worlds. To new worlds." The next morning, early, before the sun had fully risen, Vivian sat on the porch with Eleanor bundled in blankets, the snow from last night glittering in the pale light. She picked up her phone, unlocked it, opened the camera, took a photo of Eleanor's sleeping face, her daughter, her future, her reason. She locked the phone. No checking for messages, no waiting for validation, no looking back. "I don't need to belong in his world anymore. I never did. I was always meant to build my own." The sun rose higher, the snow began to melt, and Vivian Ashford, billionaire, mother, survivor, smiled. Because for the first time in years, she knew exactly who she was, and that was more than enough. If this story touched your heart, if you felt Vivian's pain and cheered for her triumph, take a moment to hit that like button. Your support helps us create more stories like this one. Drop a comment below. Tell us, have you ever been underestimated by someone who should have known better? We'd love to hear your story, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll never miss another powerful story that speaks to your soul. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it today. Sometimes a story is exactly the reminder someone needs. Closing statement. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team. Every word was crafted with intention to bring meaningful lessons and emotional value to our audience. We believe that stories have the power to heal, inspire, and transform. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.